the quickest way to having a overall holistically successful and abundant career is to absolutely be yourself first and foremost. Be as authentic as possible. Whatever is lighting you up about your business, you want to share from that place. And it doesn't matter at all what anybody else is doing, what the matrix says, the algorithms, the business coach, whatever. Like, those are all great to have in the back pocket or have as reference. But bottom line, if you're not passionate about what you're offering and sharing that energy, people don't remember exactly the words you say, but they remember the feeling of watching you on their computer or their phone.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Jonah from Teachable, and we are delighted to be talking to Whitney. Whitney, I like to let the creator introduce themselves. So if you can start, just tell us a little about yourself. We would love to know, like, your platform, the name of your school, the name of your business, and also your story of how you started working for yourself as a creator.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Jenna. Yeah, so I grew up a total wannabe artist, and then about 3 years out of college, selling books door to door, was reading a book called Zen and the Art of Making a Living. And in it, he quoted Nietzsche as saying, "The proper task of life is art." And the author went on to say that he's like, most of you will think that this quote has nothing to do with you, but this book will insist throughout that unless you adopt an artist mentality, you won't be able to create the life of your dreams. And I was pretty clueless as to what I was here to do. I was very convicted that there was going to be like the idea, and I would know when the idea came. And so when I read that quote, and my relationship to my own life artist, was wounded because I'd had an art teacher when I was 9 tell me drawing wasn't my thing. And I had been a total wannabe. And the only thing I knew at that point is that I wanted an exciting life. Like, I wanted a life that was way beyond the cookie cutter. And so that statement really resonated with me. And then the next question was, where does one go to develop this artist mentality? Because every once in a while, I would get courageous enough to think about taking an art class. And in college, you needed to take drawing 101, 102, painting 101, 102 to get to like the mixed media collage that I thought sounded doable. Or I was living in Charleston, South Carolina for a hot minute and called up the local art center. And this old lady was like, "We're so glad you called. The next registration's in 13 weeks. And I was just like, 13 weeks? Like, I'm not even going to live in this state in 13 weeks. So I didn't understand. It felt like the best kept secret. If we have to develop this artist mentality, then who, what, where, why? Like, sign me up. And so I ended up, like, literally in that book, I ended up writing the Creative Fitness Center, which was the art center I opened about a year and 4 months later. And opened the doors, had never painted on a canvas still. I did when I was 9, an abstract, when the art teacher told my mom and I that drawing wasn't my thing. And took classes along with my students. And we all started having these breakthroughs in our lives. And it had to do with the art. But the art was just activating different ways of looking at life and looking at problems and looking at challenges. And together we got super excited. And I started writing my first book after doing some HGTV appearance, like back when it was like, here we have step 1 and then here's step 3 already done, and I was like, you guys really should do something more like where we just show up at like law office and walk in and be like, clear the decks, you're painting right now. And I still remember one of the producers was like, well, if you want to get your own show, you should write a book. So the book became the one thing I knew for sure. I started writing it in 96, 97, and it was published in 2007. And
Well, that's so the book. Wow, I have so many. Sorry, were you done talking?
there, yeah.
Yeah. First off, there's like a whole other conversation we could have there. I'm fascinated. But just to clarify some elements of the journey, so you didn't identify as an artist until you had this calling.
Yeah.
And then the book was your jumping off point to start what is your business now?
Yeah, I had this art center, the Creative Fitness Center, from 96 to 2010. The book came out because I was like, people should not have to find me on this little side street in Nashville, Tennessee, in order to have this kind of artist within awakening. And what I had discovered is that it has nothing to do with skill or technique. It's just literally like working out that muscle, which is why it was called the Creative Fitness Center. And so I wrote the book as an offering to be like, this is now available to anyone, just recognizing that art and life are pretty much inseparable, that we're creating, whether you choose to believe it or not, you're creating the art that is your life in every moment. So let's do it consciously with awareness. And so the book was creativity workouts that you could do with like art supplies you got at the grocery store, nothing fancy.
I love that.
Yeah.
I come from a music background myself, and still in this role, I still have like clients and do coaching with a lot of artists. Even people who are comfortable identifying with artists still have so much negative self-talk or stuff that
Mhm.
they're capable of living the art, but there's a lot in the way. So
Yes.
I love that creative fitness. That's a cool way of looking at it.
Yeah, yeah. There's an old story around creativity and art that isn't the original story, but since we stepped into this, I don't know if it was the age of reason or the industrial age, the capitalist age, where art became a product. And so that's basically tainted. And I don't believe there are any victims. I think we learn through contrast, right? So it's like the creativity and the artistry was taken away from us to give us an opportunity to be like, oh, that's what the world is like, without owning how powerfully creative we are. And now we get to take it back. So that's the first thing I do with everybody, is just an understanding that it's just an old story around creativity and there's a new one, that's always been there. Don Miguel Ruiz, The Four Agreements, you may have heard of that book. In the foreword or the intro or somewhere, he talks about his Toltec tradition, and that the word for human in Toltec is artist. So, yeah,
They're inseparable
we're
natures.
remembering
Yeah.
that. Yes.
Yeah, remember? That's fun. Man, I could go. Yeah, I have so many questions. I need to book a whole other interview with you. We're here to talk about a specific thing, but there is a world inside of just your story. So to round out your story, then the studio closed,
Right.
and then at what? Yeah, can you just wrap up like how you got to being a digital creator
Yes,
and all of
exactly.
that?
So in 2007, 2008, when I was married, we bought property out here in Oregon, where I live now, in a very sparsely populated area. It's super amazing, but there are only 7,000 people in the county, and the county's an hour away from the next slightly little populated area. So I decided to go online, launched my online programs in 2009. I actually went to New York. I can't remember if I was going to New York already. It was for Women International Women's Day, and I had created a banner that Women for Women International was going to march across the Brooklyn Bridge, and then everyone painted on it. Tim Gunn and Naomi Campbell and the president of Ireland, who was a woman, we all painted on the canvas. And then I carried around a canvas that said "Create Change" with my business partner at the time, and did book signings, and was there to announce the new online creatively fit programs. And because I knew where I was going, I wouldn't have access to live people like I did in Nashville, Tennessee. So I went online in 2009, online programs. Yeah, it was just step-by-step photos. There wasn't even video. I'm not sure why. I don't even remember why there weren't videos. But anyway, it was, yeah, the early stages of online programming. And I've really grown to appreciate so much the opportunity that is available to all of us, regardless of where you live, teaching online, because anyone, anywhere can access it. And if you have an idea, a teaching, anything to offer the world that will others expand and grow and fall in love with life more, then share it with as many people as possible, please.
Yeah, I love. You're saying like 2009 doesn't seem that long ago, but I was trying to even think, did I have a phone and what did it look like for the video?
Yeah.
It's
iPhones.
amazing
We
how
had
far we've come.
iPhones, we had smartphones, because when my book
Yeah.
came out and I started traveling doing book signings and stuff, that's when I got my smartphone. But I don't know, the video, Vimeo, YouTube existed, but like Vimeo and all that. And then I don't even remember where I hosted my first online programs, if it was just a Dropbox link or there
Huh.
were some platforms that I don't even remember now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it
Well,
was totally different.
so that's so cool. It's not often we get to talk to someone who's been doing this since almost before the space existed, before we existed for sure.
Right?
I'm curious, so did you launch with the same mission, the same transformation you were offering people, and having launched so early in that online space, has it stayed the same? I'm curious
Yeah.
what the transformation is you were offering when you started and what you say it is now and how that's
The
changed.
conversation I was having with people from 96 into 2012 was more around looking at the brain as a muscle. Thomas Edison said that the brain works just like muscles if one would take the time to train the mind how to think, right? So I was using the very rough, don't take it into brain surgery, right left brain paradigm. It's the kind of the dual processor model of thinking. It's we're either coming from fear or love kind of mentality. Albert Einstein, do you believe that you live in a friendly or an unfriendly universe? So I was having that dialogue, and that doing these creativity workouts, having a creative practice would physiologically stimulate the part of your brain, which it does and it still does, creates neural pathways. And so you can create new patterns of thinking and perceiving and believing and acting by doing something different at the canvas or in your art journal. And so that was a conversation I was having. Along the way, the spiritual journey came up next to it, which I think in hindsight is inevitable because we're here to create. And when you accept that call as a creative and you realize that what we're doing when we create is bringing things in that never existed before, and then that there are experiences and knowledge and structures wanting to come in to support life on this planet on all levels, environmentally and politically and socially and economically and across the board, then you begin to understand that it's not a logical, rational journey. Which meanwhile, if anyone's life has proceeded in a logical, rational way, please create an online program on Teachable for that, because I'm pretty sure it's not how it works. The loop-de-loop, in and out, up and down pattern that creativity follows. So when the spirituality came alongside for me personally, I kept it safe in the inner circle of my conversations with people. When I started teaching online, I had a paint marathon where you painted 24 paintings. And the invitation was to paint over and over the same canvas. I was talking about detachment and talking about tuning in to what you were seeing. And I had prompts, and it was just this mentality that you could paint and work out and develop this creative muscle. In Nashville, I have a great marathon that like so many people participated in, whether they ran or walked the full marathon or ran or walked the half marathon. It was like everyone was involved in the marathon. So I was like, I want to make painting that accessible, right? Like they weren't doing the marathon to qualify for the Olympics or get sponsored or whatever. They were doing it out of a desire to be well. And that's why I paint, is to be well and whole in this lifetime. So that was the beginning of my programs. And then in 2010, I launched my Creatively Fit coaching training, inspired by an email from a woman in Nigeria who asked if I had an African branch. And I almost choked. I read that question because I was like, a branch in Africa? I don't even have a stick or a twig or a leaf or anything. So I was like, well, you have a computer, clearly, and I have these online programs. I had 3 at the time I can bundle together, and it takes a village. So I'll recruit people in the States and I'll charge them. I won't charge you, and you'll all become certified creatively fit coaches, and you'll know how to teach art the way I teach art. And so that was the beginning of that, which was challenging for that logical, rational part of me, because I still have no formal art training, no coaching training, like nothing. Life was offering me these things, and it shows up. So one of the things I teach in this life artistry realm is that when you're presented with a fork in the road, say a decision to make or something, wait for 24 hours and ask for the affirmation for which path to take. And after I got that email from the woman in Nigeria, I paused because I wanted to just reply back. So sorry, I don't have an African branch. Wish you the best. But it was this long, passionate email that made no sense why I'm getting this email from a woman in Nigeria. And within 24 hours, within like 12 hours, two people in this county mentioned Nigeria to me. And since no one but me, it feels like, has uttered the words Nigeria. So I replied back to the email very open. And so the spiritual journey became one that once people were in my circle or in the coaching training, I would mention, like, so there's also this spiritual thing that may happen. And I was super scared to put it on like the homepage. And then I started getting guided, prompted in ways that like I'd read things about people. I had a man reach out to me from England who somehow stumbled across me. He's, I want to have a conversation or I want to meet or whatever. And we were both traveling. So like 2 months later we met and he's like, so why did you want to talk to me? And I'm like, dude, you emailed me. Like, he didn't even remember. And then I'm like, what do you do? And he's like, just came out spiritually and I'm teaching people how to write books guided by the moon cycles. And I was like, oh, I know exactly why you reached out to me, because I'm being encouraged to put the spiritual journey on the homepage, which I did when I launched Whitney Freya after leaving my marriage and taking the last name Freya because it found me, and created a line of sacred symbol stencils. And it was all life is the canvas of your soul and living in a co-creative relationship with your infinite self. So that replaced the predominant right left brain conversation. And I chuckle now at the remembering being so afraid of sharing that with people, because life does respond to prompts and beliefs and stories and dialogues we have that are all invisible. You can't see or hold any of them. It's a very spiritual experience. And so tuning people into this subtle level of awareness and how to ride those waves throughout their life, that is what I just absolutely love. And you can just practice it with the painting practice I offer. Like, the canvas just makes visible and provides an experience to get us out of our head, which is a major source of the imbalance, is just we've been too much in our thinking rational mind, and we're meant to drop down into the rest of our body. So it is just a blast.
Yeah, it's so cool. I love too how you're utilizing the art. It's not necessarily about the outcome of a piece of art being in a museum or something like that. It's a vessel, and it's part of just how we work. You've hinted about it in telling kind of the transformation or what you offer, but I'm curious, especially with that reflection of how scary it might have been at first to share that with the world.
Mm-hmm.
How, twofold question here, how making that choice to share has impacted your life in the years since, how it's impacted your students' life. I'm sure very practically, it sounds like you give them certifications, you give them tools, but also just what you hear from those students. And then also I guess it's a 3-point question, just the impact in general, also how that impact you have on your students fuels the continued effort or gets rid of that fear or mitigates it if it doesn't go away totally.
You'll have to keep me on track with all those. Like, you can tell, a big rabbit hole. But the first thing is that I really encourage everybody, and especially online creators, content creators, anyone entrepreneurial, you've got to be, you don't have to, but the quickest way to having a overall holistically successful and abundant career is to absolutely be yourself first and foremost. Be as authentic as possible. Whatever is lighting you up about your business, you want to share from that place. And it doesn't matter at all what anybody else is doing, what the matrix says, the algorithms, the business coach, whatever. Like, those are all great to have in the back pocket or have as reference. But bottom line, if you're not passionate about what you're offering and sharing that energy, people don't remember exactly the words you say, but they remember the feeling of watching you on their computer or their phone. And so if you're like I've been we all go through these stages with that fear of showing up that transparently or sharing something that feels edgy or dangerous, quote unquote, holding back and then trying to fit into a more maybe socially palatable or whatever dialogue or conversation is just, you're just not doing anyone any service. You're not doing yourself. You're not bringing 100% of you to the people that you're offering your work to. So first and foremost, for me, I watched way too much Bewitched as a child and I Dream of Jeannie, but I've always like just known that there was so much more going on behind the scenes. I just have always known that and been so curious about that. And so for me, this creative journey is one of this like inner discovery and the synchronicities and coincidences that have happened. Just a little nutshell. So I started painting owls in 2009. I think I saw this like computer skin, which is stuck to my stove right now, actually. And there's these cute little owls. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to paint owls. And then I just kept painting owls. And then I'd make jokes like Picasso had his blue period. I'm in my owl period. And then it got to the point where I was able to take a step back and be like, wow, yeah, you're super into painting owls. Maybe try something else. Funny you should ask. So I was teaching a workshop with a singer-songwriter in Nashville, Minton Sparks, and it was Change Your Story, Change Your Life. And we were doing this collage exercise that I do. And one of the cards ended up with this very predominant divine feminine energy, which I was not tuned into at the time at all. But I remember thinking, I wonder who comes up when I Google who is the goddess of art. So I had a smartphone at that point. So I pulled out the phone and I asked that question to the Oracle of Google and I got Athena. And I'm like, and who does Athena always have on her shoulder is an owl, which I now have this half sleeve owl on my shoulder as of a couple of years ago. And anyway, so I was like, whoa, maybe there's a reason I'm painting owls. So this was the beginning of this total evolutionary point in my creativity where I realized that there was a bigger dialogue happening when we show up not to just create art as product. And the owl stayed with me for a whole other year. I literally would try to paint something other than an owl and I couldn't. And it would be between like an owl would just appear or I'd finally just be like, what the fuck else would I paint besides an owl? Like it's clearly the best thing to paint. I could not paint an owl. And in hindsight, then after my divorce, the shaman I was working with was like, your guides were sending you the owl to guide you out of your underworld experience, right? Because owls can see things in the dark that no one else could see. And it was becoming time for me to understand that the relationship I was in was not serving my highest and greatest good. And so as soon as I made a couple choices that were like whatever that pin is that breaks and then things, anyway, I was on the path to leaving that marriage. I stopped painting owls and I painted next a double crocodile, double fate, which is a protection symbol. So that began, and I'd had a dream about prescribing symbols to people. So then it became either a question of what do I want to call into my life and what's a symbol of that and paint that, because what I understood was energetically what you focus on expands, right? So if I'm going to spend hours at the canvas painting something, I might as well paint something that is symbolic of abundance or inner peace or courage. And so I began this total symbolic journey. And once you tune into this, images that you start seeing over and over, like someone might say, oh, I'm seeing lotus flowers everywhere, or I'm seeing red fire trucks everywhere, or I'm seeing bears everywhere. Not everybody is seeing bears or red fire trucks everywhere. You are being offered information through that symbol. And so once you start tuning into that, you can have this dialogue where you're either creating intentionally what you want energetically to expand into your life, or as you paint, you start seeing things come from the canvas. And then it's the other way around. You're being offered an energy to get to know and align with so that you can hold more of it. So that started happening. And yeah, I can't even fathom now painting just to paint a pretty picture. Like they're all these very mystical conversations that help me very practically. I'm all about practical magic. It's got to have on the ground, in the body results. And it can result in more courage, bolder action, less stress because you're not trying to control things as much anymore. You're learning to trust. You feel connected in a way that you haven't before. A lot of us entrepreneurs and creators, we're wearing all the hats. We're keeping all the balls in the air. I would like to suggest you have other support. You don't have to name it. You don't have to name it. You don't have to, it's just engaging in this flow. It's a flow. And we all know that feeling of like, wow, one thing led to the other. And then the person appeared and then the idea dropped. And then the Teachable ad came up and then bam, all of a sudden I'm creating online programs. And so you follow the energy and it's so much better.
How many students do you typically have right now? And just like paint a picture for us how you use Teachable now. It's not a Dropbox link or that anymore. So do you have courses? Do you have a community?
Yes.
How do you serve this transformation in that virtual space? Because you're also dealing with complex concepts and stuff.
Right?
So what is that very practically as it pertains to the Teachable platform?
So I remember the first course I published on Teachable was my free course that's still there, the Life Artist Masterclass, for exactly this kind of forum where people are listening and maybe you're thinking like, okay, I cannot paint or draw, but I'm curious, Whitney Freya, let's put you to the test. Let's explore this living as a life artist. Show me the money. How does this work? So I created the Life Artist Masterclass where you don't have to paint or draw a thing, but I take you through a journey with 5 symbols and illustrate how you can use these as trail markers. And I'm actually filming it outside in this beautiful natural area where I live. And so I launched that program free on Teachable. I remember working it out so I could get paid right away I must have had like my 21-day painting meditation challenge because I needed money. Like I couldn't wait a month, the 30 days and then a month. But so I opened that course up and I had thousands of people in there pretty quickly. So whatever Teachable program I was on, I'm like, oh no, there are going to be hundreds of people in there right away. So as far as what level Teachable, it's funny, that's all coming back. So I launched that. And since I've been with Teachable so long, and I've been meeting with you guys recently and learned some things that I've been on 1.0 forever. I don't have anything 2.0, but I like my 1.0 now that I've gotten into some other people's 2.0. It's all good what you get used to, right? But yeah, I use Teachable as space. For me, it's creating space. I love to create space. I love to create structure within which people can experience things. And then I hold very loosely to it. I think people feel like they are in a co-creative relationship with me and the content that I offer, because it's not about I have the answers for you. It's I have practice and experience that I can very easily show you, remind you, activate a knowing, giving you permission to explore without this fear of doing it wrong or making a mistake or being perfect. And along the way, because I have so much conviction and all the energy in these videos and the writing is in alignment with this life artistry and just the truth that everything is energy and energy is very creative and energy resonates with like energy. And so you can very consciously create from the inside out, whatever it is you're desiring to experience. The canvas makes it visible. So let's get to know this for you.
So it's so cool. Are you doing live sessions as well, or just all pre-recorded at this point?
Yeah, like no, I do a little bit of everything. So my Teachable content is evergreen, pre-recorded. I'll do live events, like I do these sacred circle days at least once a year, and I'll do them live, but I'll sell them on Teachable and then offer the replays on Teachable, and people will keep buying them after the live event is done. I haven't done the Zoom in the actual course yet, but I'm getting close. I went in there and explored that a little bit the other day. And I do my community, everyone in Teachable is invited to an open studio every month that I do on Zoom just for free. Whether you're in a free course or not free course, as long as you're opted in for my emails. you will get
There
an
you
invitation.
go.
So that's how we're incentivizing that. But most of the content is pre-recorded and on Teachable, and I love that because it's
Yeah.
available to anyone, anywhere, at any time. And
Well, and you hinted too that in this case, Teachable is the canvas that you bring to life through the attitude and the way you teach. I love that. And you hinted at this that you've had thousands of students through. Do you have a sense of how many students you've worked with in the
there,
time since you've been on
I
Teachable?
think I have 12,000 something on Teachable
Wow.
now. Yeah.
And this is something where the more and more we see the creator space growing and everything, there's all kinds of creators, but the ones we love that come to Teachable, especially, often are much more focused on the impact than the income. Yes, you need the money,
Hmm.
and that comes along with it, but we adore that this space exists where you can focus on the impact and the income in itself will follow. You need the skills, you need to do things so that you need to have a pricing plan, make sure those things are set up.
Hmm.
Can you share either how much you've made on Teachable or
Yeah, no, the woman who helps me run my business emailed me, I think it was a couple years ago. She's like, "Did you see you've done over $1 million on Teachable?" And then I just got another thing around, "You've reached the $1 million Creators Club." And I'm like, I already did that years ago. Anyway, I don't know. I don't track that stuff a lot, but I am making a living doing this work. And so good living. Yeah, it's exciting. And then there was the time in 2012, really, when I feel like my career started and I wasn't making enough money. I had credit card bills for a while, until I paid those off. And when you are committed to, and this is energy, this is life artistry, but when you are committed to a vision and you keep choosing it over and over again, and when you start self-doubting yourself, you find the tool that gets you back on track, and you keep yourself in a level of coherence with what it is you desire to experience in your life, it will happen. It literally has to happen. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but what it means is when you know, like, this is how I'm going to make a living. And I used to chuckle at, I'd say, spirit. I'm like, spirit, like, wow, you've got me right where you want me. Because especially when I was doing this in 2012, this county where I live, there are no jobs. Like, there's not just a way to go out and get a job. And I kept thinking, maybe if I lived in Portland or some city, maybe I just go, bah, I'm just going to go get a job. But that wasn't an option. So I was committed to making a living doing this work. And I invested a lot. I went into debt. I did all the things because I knew that as long as I was investing in what I wanted to expand, that it would all come back, and it has. And especially when you are focused on, and may all sentient beings benefit. So one of my biggest classes is my Tara course, Green Tara. We're painting Tara, and she's constantly reminding us, and may all sentient beings benefit, because once any of us opens up to what's possible as opposed to focusing on what's wrong, that creates even just a little atmosphere of possibility, right? And then we move around this atmosphere and we interact with other people. And as long as your belief in what's possible is stronger than their conviction around what's not possible, they're going to align and move into your space. So this is what we're doing with our online programs, and we can reach anywhere. So you want to be convicted about the good you're offering the world, and then plug it shamelessly, because we want all of these kind of offering heart-led messages to expand, to be bigger and have more and more power. And so, yeah, Teachable's been amazing and has grown along with me. Like,
yeah,
seeing a lot of the
yeah.
new offerings, and it keeps coming, and it's fabulous.
Well, and it's funny for us to keep remembering we're so involved in the creator space, we often forget that it is still novel to much of the world, that this exists, that you can make a living this way, that you not even just that you can make a living with courses, but that help other people,
Yeah.
and that's just accessible. I have some really practical questions for you, for us, just for the teachable side of
Yeah.
things, because we were interested. Our platform is quite flexible. You can accept payments through Teachable. We do your taxes and stuff, or some of them at least through Teachable. But you were previously using another payment processor, which we like to allow so there's flexibility. And then recently came back to using Teachable as your payment processor. Very practically, what are the reasons around that? Because we like to know.
So honestly, I don't really know.
That's great.
Because I have a team, right? I have a woman who runs all that stuff.
Right.
And I know I have Teachable Pay, and I know I still have Stripe. And sometimes with ads or programs or funnels and things go through Stripe, and other times they go through Teachable. And I have lost track and blissfully don't really need to keep up
That's lovely.
on that side of things. And the being able to use PayPal, and I haven't had any issues payment wise. I love that you guys keep track of the taxes and countries and states and all that kind of
This is so fun, though. And I may follow up with you because I would love if whoever makes those decisions on your team could give us some insight because it's so helpful for us to know.
Yeah.
But this is also an amazing moment to show where you're at, that it works. And someone who you've hired to be smart in that space made that choice. I love That's and I also love it's always like some creators end up getting to a point of having big teams, some function on their own forever.
Yeah.
And on an impact level, it's always amazing to me that something that starts as a calling or an owl that you can't ignore can turn into this place where you're not only impacting your students, but you have employees.
Yeah.
You're funding other people's lives on this risk you took or this moment you couldn't ignore.
Yes.
Is pretty cool to me.
For sure. Yeah, I decided a long time ago that because I've had fear. I'm a big balance person, right? So there was this limiting belief I had around if my business grew that I would not be able to live life the way I wanted to, that it would get to be too much, or when my kids were home, that I'd be too preoccupied or something. So once I got to whatever stage, whatever tipping point happened where besides just trusting and paying someone else more than I paid myself, but I would rather employ more people or have more independent contractors working with me and maintain my freedom than make more money myself. It's a total lifestyle choice, and it's awesome. It's a great
and it's that there's various versions of it, and I think there's versions much older than our modern version, but money doesn't make you happy unless you share it. Is that thing, and then it feels good to share, and that's cool. It's funny. I was caught a little off guard because we don't often book a call with a creator who doesn't know the reason we called them. Right. But this is so fun.
I did another TeleSummit interview right before this, right? And I knew we had reached out because I've been talking with people. Yeah. So that was why you reached out, was about Teachable Pay?
Not entirely. You have an interesting story regardless, but the impact, it was something we were curious about, specifically how Teachable Pay makes it easier for you. We've touched on so many more fun things already. Yeah, I have just a few more questions for you, and then we have to go. Chris, if you didn't see in the comments, if you can Slack Kate that we're going to be late. We have another meeting, but it's not as fun as this. I think one of my questions was like what marketing strategies you found to be the most effective, but you've already implied that once you embraced that this was the path you were taking and the way you were going to help people, that you shouted it from the mountaintop in every way you could. But if you're looking at a creator who's found a similar calling and is just getting started, knows they want to do it, they're investing in it, but with all of the options available to get the word out, doesn't know which way to choose, do you have any advice, whether it's practical or more ethereal or more spiritual?
No, I also co-lead a women's synergy collective for women entrepreneurs to help women entrepreneurs harness what I call new paradigm business practices, because the old model or the traditional model of spreadsheets and quarterly goals and things like that, I feel like for a lot of us that are really wanting to expand in the entrepreneurial and online scene, those old practices and structures suck the energy out of us. And so my first bit of advice is to, one, get as authentic as you can, sharing wherever it is easy and comfortable for you to share. So say Instagram, share, whether it's a reel or a live or a story or whatever, just share and observe yourself. Can you really get on there and speak from your heart, unfiltered, enthusiastic, able to invite people into your space, buy now, click now, join me now, from a place of enthusiasm and love and passion without fear. I don't want to be salesy. I don't want to bother them. Out the window. Forget about that stuff. Just be yourself. So first and foremost that, because I see a lot of entrepreneurs get tangled up in the technology and all the what you should be doing, and it just sucks the life energy out of why you're there in the first place. So do that first, right? And then it's just understanding, like I always think of a oscillating sprinkler, right? Like you're going to water your lawn, you want it moving around, watering the whole lawn. So some people watch videos, some people read emails, some people only click on stories, some people go right to your timeline or whatever. So you want to be doing a little bit of everything. By all means, have a YouTube channel, allow people to get to know you. Video is the most clear way in an online space for people to really understand if they're feeling attracted or magnetized to you and your teaching. So I'm always like covering all the bases. And it's understanding that marketing is allowing people to get to know you and then educating them. So it's making new friends and sharing what you love. So do that as much as possible. And then cut yourself some slack. It's a long term game, like it's a long distance game. It's not a sprint. So being consistent for me means over the course of a month or a quarter or a year, being consistent and making sure that people are the combination of seeing behind the scenes and then really feeling like you're showing up for them that day and then offering them a very clear, here's how you work with me, here's how you can begin the journey in between all of those things, but doing it light as a feather, just sharing, not taking yourself too seriously while really feeling convicted about what it is you're offering. And a lot of times that lack of conviction isn't because you don't believe in what you're offering so much. It's just you're tired or you've been in the left brain balancing the checkbook, which nobody does that anymore. I never did. But anyway, that side of things, and get into what you love about it, managing your own energy, filling yourself up, reminding yourself why you got into this in the first place. So it's a constant going around and doing that. And it can feel exhausting or overwhelming, or it can just be like, wow, I have an opportunity to reach so many people. And that's why the internet exists, is it just makes visible how interconnected we are. And everything has a shadow and a light. So for all of us that are inspired by your business being an offering and generating abundance both ways, doing that shamelessly and out loud and authentically is the best thing you can be offering the world right now. So it's a multifaceted experience for sure, but the growing your business is an inside out job, just like everything else. And it takes consistent getting in front of people. And it's a beautifully abundant online space right now. And so what's cool about that is you can be completely yourself. And the more completely yourself you are, the more you do magnetize people because you're being very clear. It's not like your purpose, why you started your business, is being filtered in any way by trying to look like a good whatever. When you're just being yourself, that energy that is your business and that is you is very clear. And when it's clear, people can perceive it clearly and they know clearly whether or not they're meant to engage or not. So you can fly your freak flag, do, be, say whatever you want, and you'll attract exactly the people that you're meant to. Whereas when you're working in person, bricks and mortar, which I've done, there is an element of being in the community or the pool of people you have to pull from and letting them know what you have coming up so that it's a success. Whereas in the online space, you can just blast yourself out into the ethers. And the more you do it, the more you give people an opportunity to find you and resonate with what you're offering. So I think it offers a tremendous amount of freedom on so many levels, so many ways. Physically, emotionally, energetically, monetarily.
Yeah. Whitney, I can't think of a better way to wrap that up. I don't think we need. It's beautiful advice. Thank you so much. Thank you for chatting with us and taking the time. There's like at least 4 other conversations I would love to have with you. So I'm going to reach out. Yeah, I have, because especially around symbology and teaching and stuff like that. Yeah, piqued my interest 1,000 times.
Fabulous.
But thank you for taking the time, starting this conversation, even though it may never be finished. Anything else you wanted to say? Any tidbits of advice or?
It's funny, what's coming to mind is something I heard a long time ago in some sort of business conference. Someone saying, well, what if like you've just taken out the second mortgage on the house and the things aren't flowing and working, and what do? Everyone thinks you're crazy in your family, whatever. And the advice was, don't stop there. So really,
I love that.
you can trust that passion that you've been given. Whatever lights you up, that is the absolute number one thing to trust. And if you just keep anchoring into that and nurturing that and feeding that and sharing that, you are going to be just fine.
Love it. Thank you, Whitney.
Thank you, Jonah.
This was such a good conversation. Yes. Thank you, everyone, for watching. It was such a delight to talk with Whitney. Keep an eye out. I feel like we're going to have some more conversations, and we'll see you all soon.